Aloha everyone, this is Michelle Melendez with Blossom Inner Wellness and StandTogetherHawaii.com, and I'm really excited to have a really good friend here, Roger Christie, who has made history in these Hawaiian Islands for, well, I'm going to let him share his story because it's quite amazing. And why I invited him to speak on this channel is because we have a right to make known that we are not happy with the Maui police chief, with this man who came from Vegas, who was in charge of the largest mass murder shooting in the United States, left so many questions unanswered, and now he's here at the largest fire mass murder, in my opinion, on the Hawaii Islands here, and he's in charge of that, again, leaving many questions unanswered. Not only that, but many people have testified that the police were blockading the Lahaina people from leaving. That's murder. If people are trying to leave a fire and you stop them, that is murder. Go to StandTogetherHawaii.com and click on Maui fires. I'm going to, after this video, I'm going to have Roger help me, and we're going to go right there and show you what is the document that you can fill out. What we're going to do first is complain to the police commission against the police chief. And just a quick story of my own. I actually took myself and about 4 other people, we took the police chief here on Big Island. We complained to the police commission against him because he had written a letter stating that according to the emergency proclamation with all the emergency proclamation with all the mandates. And I want to just let you guys know, when you live in a free country, they cannot mandate you. They cannot force you to do anything. A mandate is a suggestion.
Right. Not a law.
It's not a law. So no legislative got together and made these laws. There's mandates are not laws. They are suggestions. So the police chief had written a letter to a friend of mine, because she had written him and asked him. So anyway, it said that his officers were going in to public establishments and educating them on the right for individuals who are medically exempt from wearing a mask to shop. And what makes you medically exempt? The fact that God gave you a nose and a mouth to breathe fresh air. So I actually had that letter, went to Island Naturals, police got called. I gave the letter to the police saying, your boss is telling you that you are going to educate this establishment that I can shop freely without a mask because I have a medical exemption. I need to breathe fresh air. And we went back and forth for 20 minutes, and they didn't let me shop. So I took them, as well as the police chief, to the police commission along with I think 4 or 5 more of us. Long story short, I got a letter back a week later saying I didn't have enough evidence. So we weren't as successful as Roger, but at least we took a stand. And then what happens is 2 months later, the police chief resigned. Did that have something to do with his resignation? I don't know. But at least we took a stand and we said, you can't do this to the people. So that's what I want to say. And so again, StandTogetherHawaii.com. Go there to know what we can do now to support Maui, to support these Hawaiian people, and to support our islands that we love.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for your stand. I was there and witnessed Michelle's testimony. It was powerful and sincere. Thank you very much for that.
What's your story? Because it's pretty powerful what this guy did.
Great, well, you'll have to probably stop me because I'll go too far, but the main thing I want to impart to people, and aloha everyone. My pleasure to be here. Good friend, superstar, frontliner who rises to the occasion when necessary. Very well. I was trained at US Army Spy School as an intelligence analyst, and when I was in 1970 and 71, when I was in that school, I found that the US government had created ethno-specific biological weapons, ethnic-specific biological weapons, and the project was called MK Naomi. You've probably heard of MK Ultra, the mind control program of the deep state and the secret guys against the US population. MK Naomi is the biological weapons program against whoever they target. Unfortunately, it includes US population, domestic targets. So when I found that shocking news out, I refused to serve anymore, not one more minute in the US Army. And I did graduate the spy school and immediately sued the Army by myself, pro se, without a lawyer, on moral grounds.
Wow.
On moral grounds. And I just did it. I was winging it. It's just like what I heard was so ugly, I didn't want to be part of the military mission in Vietnam or anywhere anymore. And so I won my case. And it was fantastic exercise, an example for a young man to speak my truth to power in a war circumstance. If you were there back in the 60s and 70s, you know how contentious that Vietnam War was here in the USA. And I'm a baby boomer. I'm 74 years old now, so I was 21 at that time. I won my case, which was really unusual. Many people with lawyers who did a similar thing called conscientious objection failed in their efforts. I won straight out the gate.
Wow.
And the big lesson, which I'd like to impart to Michelle and to the audience, is I asked my company commander on my way out the door. He was very respectful, courteous, gave me my last paycheck, my honorable discharge, full GI Bill, free medical care for life.
Wow.
And I said, one more question, please. He said, sure, whatever. And I said, how could I possibly win this case? It was fairly impossible to do. And he said, it came down to one word. What's that word? That word was sincerity. He said I was sincere, and the military knew it after examining me carefully and my paperwork. And they said that sincerity has legal value, and that helped to win the case for me. So off I went into my young man life back in the 1970s with that great example of speaking truth to power and being rewarded for it under some really challenging circumstances. So time goes on. I didn't parlay that into any kind of legal action. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the law very well. I just grew up with the concepts, thanks Mom and Dad, especially Mom. We didn't grow up with religion. We grew up with the words of morality and sincerity and cooperation and ethics and values and character. And those words help propel me and guide me and navigate me in my life. So many years later, I wind up here on the Big Island, and in the mid-1980s, 1986, and it was a super happy place. The 1980s is probably the standard of excellence in this part of the century for good living in Hawaii, and especially in Maui. Maui was kind of like the main destination in the 1980s. And it was parties almost everywhere, and there were no gates on the parks. They were open 24 hours a day, and people were happy and singing and chanting and dancing and partying, and it was incredible how great it was here. And I soon realized that part of that greatness was the cannabis economy. And people were growing cannabis in the backyard, and it was so prized throughout the world that people would even come here to enjoy it, and while they were here on vacation would enjoy it possibly, and sometimes take it home with them because there was no security on the airplanes. There was no TSA. You could put in your luggage whatever you wanted, and that was often the case. People would come here with a suitcase full of cash and buy a duffel bag full of cannabis and go home with that. And you know, that wasn't my particular lifestyle, but I witnessed it and the happiness that came with it. Well, that happiness went a little too far, apparently. The local people were so empowered with growing wealth in the backyard, the old-fashioned way, and creating homeostasis, that quality of well-being. When people have some cannabinoids, smoke a little cannabis, they're happier, healthier, and it helps us to question authority. It does something cognitive to people to have the right amount of cannabis in the right circumstances. It opens our mind some kind of way, opens our heart to expanded awareness. Well, soon after I got here, actually, 1980, it was about that time, the marijuana eradication program kicked in gear, and it was called Green Harvest, which is the name for the marijuana eradication program. And it was funded by the county, because I'm going to focus on the power of the county and the power of the individual in this interview. Thank you, Michelle. So Green Harvest, I have the archive here and can show that the Big Island was the motherlode of cannabis growing in the USA at that time. As a matter of fact, can you stop that for a second? I'm going to grab a show and tell. Okay, we're back. Well, part of what I was trained to do in the US Army as an intelligence analyst was to track war information and become an archivist. So I succeeded in my effort to exit from the Army and not have anything to do with the war in Vietnam. And when I got here, I was a cannabis smoking guy. I'm from the 60s generation, baby boomers.
So I just want to say real quick that we're headed in the direction of telling you the power of the people that we have. It's actually easy and it's free. So he's going to share with you his experience of what he did to get his freedom back, because he actually was incarcerated for a while, and to also make a stand for his constitutional rights. And I just have to say again, the Constitution is meant to protect our rights. It doesn't give us our rights. We have our rights from God. They're unalienable rights that we have, and the Constitution is meant to protect them. And he's going to share what power do the people have. Go ahead.
Got it. Thank you very much for that reminder. The whole point of this interview and Michelle's invitation was empowerment of the individual. Fortunately, I was educated in a church on Maui back in the day called the Religion of Jesus Church, and Pastor Jim Kimmel said 1 equals infinity, that we're each divine children of God. We have enormous, mostly untapped power, and to do important work, we don't necessarily need an army or a group or a partner to do our best work. And I've certainly proved that for myself with my lawsuit against the US Army, and then eventually my complaint against the police chief here, former police chief on the Big Island, which was a successful effort at the Hawaii County Police Commission. Michelle, I know, and many people out there are looking for remedies for Lahaina and for their jurisdiction. How do you get justice or get your rights exercised and respected? Well, they need to be exercised. I believe we do have the format for a great system of government. People come here, as the story goes, in rusty, leaky boats to get to the USA because of our Bill of Rights and our freedom. And it's a beautiful thing if it's exercised. If it's used. If it's not used, it gets atrophied and disappears. And then some other force comes in. I'm reminded of a bumper sticker I saw the other day: a nation of sheep begets a government of wolves. And that's
where we're at today.
Yep, just natural thing. So anyway, wanted to let you know, because I'm an archivist, this is what was happening when I got here in 1986, 87, 88. The U.S. DEA quantified the amount of cannabis grown on the Big Island. It was the most, they say, more marijuana seized here in 1988 than any 2 states added together. Our former Attorney General, Warren Price, said we had an estimated $10 billion annual cannabis cash crop. Probably exaggerated 2 or 3 times, but regardless, even reduce that by a half or a quarter, it's still maybe bigger than the economy today in some ways. So when the marijuana eradication program, or Green Harvest, really kicked into gear, especially after the Berlin Wall fell down and the Pentagon signed up for the war on drugs, they came to the Big Island first. They literally flew fighter jets, F-4 fighter jets, treetop, over Puna and other areas of the rural Big Island as kind of a, I don't know, a wake-up call. Like, hey, big dog is here, pay attention. And then helicopters came in and gridded out the place and mapped it out. And we're looking for cannabis from above and found tons and tons of it growing here. And the war on marijuana and the marijuana growers, the marijuana culture, the cannabis culture went way too far. And it was heavily funded. And I found the premise in the environmental impact statement. It's like this thick. I thought, what's the premise for doing this horrible thing, which is, and then they were spraying poison, triple toxic poison from helicopters on people's farms and gardens and children's toys and catchment roofs and everything. It was horrific. I thought, what's the root of this? How could they justify this? Well, I looked into the first paragraph of the environmental impact statement for the program, and it had a giant flaw in it. And the premise was the health problems caused by marijuana, which was just the opposite. It was the health problems caused by the marijuana eradication program, which was proven in a landmark study to have led to poverty and created the meth epidemic, which we're still living with today. This study from 1991 to 1994 from the University of California, Berkeley School of Public Health, came here, analyzed what was going on, because we were the #1 meth capital of the world after being the #1 cannabis capital. A few years later, after Green Harvest kicked in, we were the #1 meth capital, and poverty was rampant. Meth was everywhere. Crime was off the charts, which it still is today, decades later, sad to say. Well, I found this landmark study which proved that the county council was signing off on funding for DEA grant money for helicopters and police overtime. And after the study came in and concluded that the marijuana eradication program they were funding and supporting was causing the giant troubles that we were having, they kept funding it. They kept funding it year after year. I would testify every year at the county council, say, do not do this. How dare you? Here's the proof. Here's the proof. Here's the evidence right here. You're causing harm and poverty and violence and all kinds of confusion and troubles. And they kept doing it. It was like, you got to be kidding me. What is going on here? So I took action reminiscent of my Army experience. I wrote a lawsuit. I have here evidence for. I'm an archivist. And I filed it pro se without a lawyer. And I impeached the mayor and the 6 of the 9 county council people who had signed off on the marijuana eradication grants in 1999. This is like 5 years after the study had come in and proven they were causing enormous harm.
Okay, I have a question really quick.
Yeah.
I saw and heard that you can't impeach anymore on Hawaii. Like you can't, like we were trying to impeach the governor, I looked at you can't impeach. How did you do that? Did you have, you didn't have to get all these signatures? And
yes, I did. I went to, but I went to the county charter. Okay, I really believe in the power of the individual, #1, and the power of the county charter, then the state, then the feds, then go up from there. The power of the county is enormous, and it can block federal funding, which we did here twice actually. So in it was 1999. I sued the mayor and 6 of the 9 councilmen who had signed off on the grants. And I needed 100 signatures of registered voters at that time.
Oh, because now it's like
13,000 on this island.
You
know why? Because I won, and they changed
made it harder.
Oh. And then there's a greater population here, so it's a percentage of the population. So,
yeah, that's right.
But at that time, I got the signatures. I made it to court. I was basically the prosecutor, and it was like a gift from God happened. When you sue elected officials here, they get a free ride legally. They get the corporation counsel protects them and does the legal work for them. Well, I didn't know this, but I was impeaching them. And because I chose that word out of the county charter, that was a remedy for the citizens who have trouble with the government. Looking for a remedy, you have recall, you have impeachment, etc.
Grab my tea, keep going.
So when you impeach somebody here, they don't get a free legal ride. They have to pay their own legal bills. So that was like a special gift of emphasis for my case and our case. Because I was doing this for other people. The helicopters never bothered me personally. Okay, it was just such trauma in the community and for the culture here. And so, yeah, that's the purpose of this video today, is to give you, the viewer, especially if you live on Maui, although I don't know that it's, I looked at the Maui County Charter. It doesn't say you have to live on Maui to file a complaint about their police chief or police officers, but you have greater standing if you have personal experience. So I have no intention of filing a complaint at this time against the chief of police of Maui, another island. Okay, we live on the big island of Hawaii. But
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because for him to, for me to see people saying that the police blockaded people in, not allowing them to leave a fire, that's murder. And that's not okay. And then what he's doing is they are violating the First Amendment of free speech, of freedom of the press, not letting press in, not letting drones fly over to see what's going on. They're putting up a wall. They're even tampering with evidence by they want to put something, or maybe they already have put something over the fire, some chemical, a glue. And what is that? So that's tampering with evidence that shows that these fires, for one, they're not normal. It's not a normal wildfire. So many people have testified to that, even many of the videos I've done. So I am gonna do what I can from being a Big Island resident, and what I see is wrong. So if that's you, even if you live off of the islands, we can just do this. This is something that people can do, and it's free, and it maybe takes 15-20 minutes.
Good point. You know, it might be extraordinarily effective to have complaints from New York and Amsterdam and San Francisco and Hungary. The government of Hungary is paying attention. I mean, really, it's a global wake-up call. And thank you, Michelle. Yeah. That's very creative thinking. So there is a remedy, and sometimes it works. Sometimes, you know, it can be frustrating, but sometimes it works. So anyway, I used it. First, I did the impeachment in 1999, and again, it was, you know, kind of a David and Goliath thing. It's hard to do with a relatively corrupt court system here. But I remember very well being at the motion to dismiss the 7 co-defendants and their lawyers, and they had to pay $10,000 to $15,000 each for their legal bills just to appear for the very first motion to dismiss. Judge Ricky Mayamano called me up to defend myself against the motion to dismiss, and I asked Spirit to put the words in my mouth. And I remember being in traffic court a couple times in the past, and every single time a lawyer or a prosecutor asked for a continuance or a delay, it was granted. So the system of justice keeps rolling. They don't care if they get you Tuesday or Thursday or next week. Just they want the calendar to move smoothly. So I said, Your Honor, I am not trained in the law. I'd like to amend my complaint and add some new exhibits to it. May I have a 90-day continuance? Wow, did that hit a nerve. 7 lawyers popped out of their chairs. Objection, objection, objection. Let's end this thing right here, right now. He has no standing, no case, you know, kick this out. The judge granted me the continuance. Nice. Oh my. So, you know, it was like round 1 in court. I and the 100 signatories on the petition, we won the first round. So we set the tone for winning the case. And I had written, I thought, a really great lawsuit with evidence to support it. The county council and the mayor went into executive session. They sent all the green harvest funding from the feds back to Washington, D.C. and shut down the program for 1 fiscal year. A giant,
that's wonderful.
Giant win
Wow.
for the people here. Wow. And yeah, so my first case I won on the word sincerity. My second case I won on the word continuance, which was a delay. It was just a gift from God, as I say, and it worked. And I stopped. Once they shut down the Green Harvest program and sent all that money back and made it peaceful here for a year, I dismissed the case. I thought, oh, if I, you know, I'm going to take my win and walk off the field, so to speak. And it was a great victory for me as a young activist and a fairly new guy here because people didn't know me that well and just been here a couple years. But anyway, thank you. Let's see, what else? So years went by. The marijuana eradication program was refunded, and
so let's get to the what was your next thing around the police, because you did something also with the police chief. Was it Big Island?
Yes.
Okay, let's get to that.
Okay, so a few years went by. The eradication program came back into funding. I didn't have the, what do we call it? I don't know, the energy to sue them again. I wanted a bigger remedy that was more permanent. So I looked in the county charter and found a remedy, and that was for a ballot initiative to create an ordinance by a vote of the people. And counties can do it. You can't change state law, but you can do something that the county has charge of. So I invented a ballot initiative. Its nickname was Peaceful Sky, because that's what we wanted, a peaceful sky, no helicopters. It was technically called the lowest law enforcement priority of cannabis ordinance. Not a resolution, an ordinance, a law. I hired somebody to be the spokesman for it because I was a dicey personality at that time and well known, front page many times. I hired somebody that was unknown, who was a lovely guy, and he did a great job, and we got a grant for $24,000. We raised a little money. We got just short of the 5,000 signatures needed to get it on the ballot. So we went to the county council and said, hey, the time's up. We're a couple hundred signatures short. Would you allow this to go on the ballot anyway? And they said, hey, at first they wanted to turn us down, say, get away. We're tired of you guys. But then they said, hey, let's let them go on the ballot. They're going to lose and be humiliated. They'll never come back here and bother us again. Let's let it go on the ballot and lose. They let it go on the ballot in November 2008. This November 4th, same day Obama won presidency, we won right here in Hawaii County the Peaceful Sky vote, the Citizens Initiative. And it was a law, an ordinance, not a resolution, which is just an intention. Well, about a couple days later, the former chief of police, Lawrence Mahuna, was on the front page of the paper saying he wasn't going to obey the law. I have a copy of his statement on the table here. Yeah, he wasn't going to obey it. He said it's a resolution. It doesn't mean anything. I'm going to keep obeying federal law. I went, wow, that's...
Well, federal doesn't supersede county law or community.
The county is strong. Yeah. It's from the people out, not the top down.
Yes.
And thank God for that spirit of we the people. So he also said, if you're pro-marijuana, you're automatically pro-terrorist. It's a quote. If you're pro-marijuana, you're automatically pro-terrorist. I went, wait a minute, you're over the line here, pal. And so I called him up, man to man. Hey, Chief, this is Roger Christie. And at that time, I had the Hawaii Cannabis THC Ministry. You can look it up, thc-ministry.org, which was a great development in my life and helped out a lot of people. Anyway, I called up Chief Mahuna. I said, were you misquoted? I just read one of the craziest things I've ever seen on the front page of the local Tribune Herald. And he goes, no, I'm not going to obey it. And if you're pro-marijuana, you're pro-terrorist.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, Chief, your words and your intention is going against the people that pay your salary. You're a Hawaii County employee. Hawaii County registered voters just voted in the majority to end permanently the marijuana eradication program funding. And he said he wouldn't obey it. I said, well, I'm going to have to bring you up on charges at the police commission and for violating your oath of office. Not violating the law, violating his oath of office. And that's underutilized. That oath is a very important part of the whole procedure here in the USA. So he said, okay, I'll see you there. We agree to disagree. Well, I wrote a complaint, and I got it notarized, I think, for $3 at the bank. And I submitted it to the police commission, the original, a copy to the local newspaper, kept a copy, of course, and got on the agenda for the Hawaii County Police Commission a month hence from that. And it was a beautiful experience. Again, I was speaking my personal truth to power in a sincere way. And it worked. I remember very well, there are many witnesses to the police commission meeting that day at the Hilo Lagoon building. I had my support team and friends and people that supported this effort and who had helped to win the ballot because we had a small team, the Peaceful Sky Alliance, we called ourselves. And we did a lot of, postering and raised a little money and bought some advertisement.
So what happened?
Okay. I was shocked, really. I was in the hallway with friends, And waiting for the meeting to be gavelled to start, the police chief comes in with his boys in blue, which are now the men in black, by the way. And I hope you've noticed they've morphed from the men in blue to the men in black.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Police chief comes in with his support team, assistant chief, etc., and his lawyer. And he comes right over to me, and you could hear a pin drop. There was tension in the room, and he came right over to me like an absolute gentleman and reached out his hand and shook my hand, patted me on the back in a very nice way, and said, Raj, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. What are you talking about? I thought we were going to war here. And then his lawyer stepped in, Mike Udovic, who became a judge, and he introduced himself and said, Roger, I'm Mike Udovic, I'm the chief's lawyer, and I feel your sincerity. I was like, wow, this is going shockingly well, and it hasn't even started. I'm really surprised. We go into the meeting, they gavel the meeting open, they do their roll call, etc., and then we came up on the agenda, my complaint, and the chief was called to defend himself against my complaint, and he stood there in full uniform and said, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the public, I quit.
Yeah.
I quit, and I'm not the chief standing here. I retired, 10 seconds ago or whatever it was, and so I am now a civilian standing here. I'm going to take my 27-year pension and retire. And it was a shocking moment. I don't know to what degree I did that.
Yeah.
Okay, but that happened. And I've got the front page news.
He wasn't going to win that. That was so obvious.
He was so wrong.
Wow.
So wrong. So instead of that, he took his pension and left the field. And, he did it as a gentleman. And, I'm friendly with him to this day if I see him in town. I actually sat with him at the mayor's prayer breakfast after that. And we were very friendly to each other, which is great. The Big Island has really taught me the experience of aloha and forgiveness, and seeking justice is really not as important to me as being in aloha. And I think maybe you've heard the phrase, if somebody's rude to you, aloha them anyway. But justice is a factor in life, and that's what we're talking about in Maui County. So that was my simple complaint for free. Cost a couple dollars to notarize it, but you can get notarized for free at the bank probably. And file your complaint if you have standing, if you have a case to bring, which many do.
Many do.
This is a very respected way that's built into our rights as citizens to bring a complaint. And by the way, the police commission of these counties in Hawaii are the ones who hire and fire the police chief.
Yes.
So if the police commission is convinced by a preponderance of evidence and the sincerity of the testifier or testifiers that you have a righteous complaint, they can fire the police chief, I think, on the spot. And in this case, it looks like the evidence is becoming overwhelming in that regard.
Yep.
So that's my story about going to the police commission, I think, unless I'm missing anything here. Look it up, the Hawaii County Charter and the remedies for the people of Maui and others. And thank you, Michelle, for that's a great idea. They got complaints from people that are insulted by what's happening and disappointed greatly in what's happening in Lahaina and Maui. Even if they're watching from a distance, maybe they used to live in Maui. Who knows?
Or they've always wanted to come to the Hawaii Islands.
Their heart goes out to the people there, and they want a remedy. This is this is a typical, from my point of view, it's a typical Hegelian dialectic, where a government or somebody creates a problem, and then they hire themselves to fix it. So it's a double whammy. It's a double problem. And it seems very obvious to me, without even taking a deeper dive into the Lahaina situation, that's what's going on. The same people that were in place, that allowed, designed, caused, or were malfeasant in office, cannot be allowed to continue in office. That is unacceptable. It is so big. The errors here are so giant. thank you to the emergency director who resigned.
Yeah.
And thank you to anyone else that's in position, the housing director, I guess, yesterday.
She resigned
right?
yesterday.
I mean, do the honorable thing.
And leave.
And leave your office and allow your evidence to be told. And the people of, the good people of Hawaii will grant you aloha and amnesty for telling your truth.
Tell the truth. On
the witness stand. Or, you know, in some way that's recorded for evidence here. There is a doctrine of lesser magistrates. Please look this up. The doctrine of lesser magistrates.
I'll put it in standtogetherhawaii.com.
Good. Yeah, it comes out of the Magna Carta. That's why they had a Magna Carta. The king was abusing his power. Some noblemen or whoever they were went against the king, and they said, hey, you're over the line here. You've got to sign this Magna Carta, this big document, and spread the power out to we the people, which became the root of the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution. So,
and they did. That actually did happen, except I think it was a few months later the king changed his mind. But he did sign it. It did actually work, and it was the first, the foundation for our Bill of Rights and Constitution.
Yeah. I would like to say, a little aside, you can follow my writing and my thinking on this topic at rogerchristie.substack.com. rogerchristie.substack.com.
And I'll put that in the link in the description as well. So if you're watching this still, thank you so much. Please subscribe and like and share. And go to my Rumble channel. Please subscribe to that, because I'm hoping that this YouTube channel will stay up, and I'm putting out there that this YouTube channel will stay up, and we just don't know right now. But the Maui police, the Maui mayor, and the governor have violated the First Amendment. That needs to end. The governor put he suspended seven housing laws 3 weeks before the Maui fire. Excuse me. There's a chicken. Do you want to go chase her real fast? Just like go run and get her out of here, and then I'll take this. I'll edit.
There's also a fire commission.
Say that again.
Same thing. There's also a fire commission to deal with the fire department.
I'll go get the chicken. Keep talking, or I'll just edit that out. Oh my gosh, chicken.
As I was saying, there's also a fire commission that deals with the fire department and the fire chief. And it looks like there are justifiable complaints to be filed in that regard as well. I've not had any personal experience with the fire commission here, but I believe it operates in the same fashion. A notarized complaint followed by sincere testimony and evidence will be heard and hopefully adjudicated fairly and properly, and get the results that people are looking for and dearly want. So thank you, Michelle, for giving this opportunity to empower the individual. That's what we're about. Michelle's doing it. Look at this incredible job. Frontliner, passionate, inspired for justice, human rights, and uplifting humanity. So thank you very much. And each of you have that same opportunity.
We can do it, you guys.
Well.
Together. We stand for Maui. Don't let this go by the wayside. People were murdered, burned alive. Children were burned alive. This was not a wildfire. There's no way this was a wildfire. Watch my other videos to see evidence of how this was not a wildfire, and do your part. Let's do our part together. Go to standtogetherhawaii.com, and we just take it one day at a time, one step at a time, one action at a time. And that's what we do, because we love each other.
That's right. Why. My salutation lately is, may unexpected blessings and love keep coming to you and from you.
All right. Aloha. Everyone.